Honorary citizenship to the United States is very rare. There are only 7 people in our history who have ever been made honorary citizens, and of those, only 3 of them were made citizens in the 20th century. They were Winston Churchill, Raoul Wallenberg, and Mother Teresa. So it is very rare, and as they say, it is not lightly conferred, nor is it frequently granted. And the rationale, as I can actually read when the Congress proclaimed him a citizen, that Wallenberg, with extraordinary courage and total disregard for the constant danger to himself, saved the lives of almost 100,000 innocent men, women, and children. One of the people who he saved was a very famous, brave, and wonderful American named Tom Lantos. And Tom Lantos was in the Congress, in the U.S. Congress for, I think it was about 30 years. He was the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and it was partially his initiative that created this honorary citizenship to be conferred. And I think it's also important to remember that during this time, in World War II, the United States and Hungary were at war, and we did not have diplomatic relations. So the United States was working with Sweden, who, as we know, was neutral, to try to do something to help the situation here, which was very quickly deteriorating and becoming ever more dangerous in Budapest. Of course, we know by now 400,000 Jews from the countryside had already been deported, but the Jews in Budapest had not been deported, but their safety was greatly threatened. So the United States, working with the government, helped support Raoul Wallenberg's efforts financially, and the money went to food and clothes and other elements to help support his work. He was an extraordinarily brave man. And when everyone around him at the time that he was here was attempting to stop him from his heroic work of saving these people, he persevered and he was not afraid. So that kind of bravery is so extraordinary that he would, in certain cases, there are these stories that he was literally being shot at, and he continued to persist to help to save people. But there's also this greater story, which is the power of an individual, that when others are all saying one thing, that an individual would stand up and say, this is not right. That's a very important story for all of us. I also think it's important to remember that he was not the only one who was standing up and standing up for righteousness. Many people elsewhere in Europe and here in Hungary did what they could do to try to save lives. And many of these people themselves were imprisoned and sometimes killed for their heroicism. And so we think of his heroics, but it also reminds us that there were many others who were trying to do the same thing. Secretary Clinton, our Secretary of State, and Carl Bildt, who's the foreign minister from Sweden, co-authored an editorial that was in the New York Times commemorating the opening of the Wallenberg year. And they asked about all of those, Wallenberg and others, who risked their lives in order to save innocent men, women, and children. And they said, why did they do it? All of these heroes seem to have shared the sentiment of the martyred Lutheran pastor and Nazi resistor Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who wrote, "Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. Not to act is to act."